Chapter 401. What the? You're making it seem as though class monitor Xian is begging Devil class to join in. Talk about conditions? What rights does Devil class have to talk about conditions? If you want to join, then join, forget it if you don't. On what basis are you talking about conditions? The surrounding students started to berate Yiqing Luo with righteous indignation. A waste class really treated themselves as treasure? And agreed to their conditions? Wishful thinking. What is your condition? Xian asked with interest. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she replied calmly, Devil class's freedom. Freedom? Xian's brows creased in puzzlement, as though he didn't understand what Yiqing Luo meant. I want Devil class's students to have the freedom to leave or stay. Other than the Academy's restricted areas, Devil class's students have the right to go anywhere in the Heavenly Academy. This request if the elders agreed to it. During the inter-class competition, even if Devil class's students performed outstandingly, the Academy had no right to transfer them to other classes. Moreover, in the future, other than those restricted areas, they would be able to move freely. To announce Devil class's students to the public, Yiqing Luo naturally had to think of a way out for them. Xian muttered to himself for a moment. This request in fact wasn't too difficult. He could roughly guess the reason why Yiqing Luo raised this request. Those people in Devil class were all waste, their innate talents were extremely bad and they had no actual combat experience at all. They had been hiding in the academy like a mouse hiding for several years, just because they were afraid of being bullied by other students. If they were to take part in the inter-class competition, these waste would definitely appear in front of everyone's eyes. If they didn't have this freedom, these students would definitely be isolated and bullied by the other classes' students. He couldn't tell that this new student's thoughts were so meticulous. Xian recalled his brother instructing him that he must definitely let Yiqing Luo and Devil class take part in the inter-class competition 8 months later. He restrained the radiance in his eyes as he smiled faintly. This request, I can raise it up to the elders. The students were in an uproar. Xian actually agreed to it? As for the other classes' requests, that will be up to them. Xian spread out his hands with a helpless look. Waiting for your answer. Yiqing Luo couldn't care less if he had any ideas or not. After throwing this sentence down, she squeezed out of the crowd and headed towards the direction of the canteen. Xian didn't obstruct her as he squinted his eyes, gazing at Yiqing Luo's departing figure. A treacherous luster faintly appeared. Beside him, Shangguan Liuli looked around with her beautiful eyes, carefully grabbing Xian's arm. Class monitor Xia, thank you for helping me. If it wasn't for you, I would have been humiliated by her again. However, before he could even grasp it firmly, Xian had already retracted his hand. Student Shangguan, as a student of the intermediate profound class, to be humiliated by a student of the Devil class, do you think you have the qualifications to look down on the Devil class? Xian still had a warm smile on his face, but the words that came out of his mouth were extremely ear-piercing. Shangguan Liuli was instantly stunned, and a trace of astonishment flashed past her face. Xian appeared in front of everyone to help her out of trouble. Could it not be because he was helping her? Wasn't it because he was interested in her? She blinked as she stared at Xian's handsome face, wondering if she had heard wrongly. But Xian's deep and impolite words continued to enter her ears. If you have the time to be jealous and bully your classmates, why not raise your own ability? A vase that only looks good will be eliminated sooner or later. Chapter 402. What was Xian's identity? Yiqing Luo didn't know and didn't delve into it. But she was very clear that Xian had agreed to her condition, which meant that he had the confidence to make the elders' quarters and the other class monitors to agree to it. Looked like the inter-class competition 8 months later, Devil class was definitely going to take part in it. She went to the cafeteria to buy some food and sat at the corner table. When the students saw her, they started pointing and gossiping. Yiqing Luo pretended not to see them as she finished her food on her own. At least his stomach was saved. She kept the cutlery and was about to get up when she saw Shangguan Fangyi walking over. That rather handsome face frowned tightly. Student Yi, do you really intend to lead Devil class to take part in the inter-class competition 8 months later? Yiqing Luo's brows rose. This news spread really quickly. In just a meal's time, it had already spread to the entire courtyard. Are you crazy? What kind of place is Devil class? If you lead devil class to take part, wouldn't it be pushing devil class to eternal damnation? Shangguan Fangyi's face was gloomy as he put on a concerned look towards Yiqing Luo. The interclass competition is an extremely cruel competition. Although it won't harm the other party's life, but there's a possibility of crippling them. Xia Yan, that fox is obviously scheming against you. When he said the last sentence, he lowered his voice to a volume that only the two of them could hear. Apparently, he was afraid that the topic of him talking about Xia Yan would be spread out by others. However, while Shangguan Fangyi was worried, like an ant on a hot pan, the young lady in front of him raised her slender brows as a ridiculing arc flashed past her slender eyes. So? You? Shangguan Fangyi was instantly at a loss for words. He had said so much and this was the reaction she gave him? Could it be that she really wanted devil class to take part in the interclass competition? It wasn't that he was afraid of devil class or afraid of Yiqing Luo. But he wanted to make use of this opportunity to show concern for Yiqing Luo. After all, Yiqing Luo's own ability was something that he understood better than Shangguan Lioli. If he was able to woo this young lady who had been raised in her boudoir, based on Yiqing Luo's relationship with so many high and mighty people, wouldn't they all become his chess pieces? But he had not expected that Yiqing Luo totally didn't fall for his tricks. Xia Yan is obviously trying to make fun of the devil class. I believe in your ability, but the other students, I'm afraid they will fall into the evil hands of the intermediate profound class. Shangguan Fangyi frowned and spoke again. This time his concern was even more obvious. I just don't want to see you get hurt. When Yiqing Luo heard that, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. This pair of brother and sister were truly blood-related. One or two disgusting people in such a simple way. What does it have to do with you? Yiqing Luo squinted her cold eyes as her lips curled disapprovingly. Firstly, devil class isn't led by me, but if the brothers in devil class are willing to take part, I will follow along. Secondly, before the devil class can participate, class monitor Xia must be able to fulfill the requirements that I have raised. Thirdly, since you look down on the devil class, don't show up in front of me after all. I'm also a student of the devil class. Shangguan Fangyi kept saying that he didn't want Yiqing Luo to get hurt and so on. His words were filled with concern. But these words, weren't they looking down on devil class from the bottom of his heart? Since he looked down on them, what was the point of putting on airs in front of her? Yiqing Luo originally didn't want to waste her saliva on Shangguan Fangyi. But upon thinking that she would be harassed by others because of this matter, she might as well say everything out at once. Chapter 403. Student Yi, my kind advice is for your own good. If you insist on seeking death, then go ahead. Shangguan Fangyi had always thought of himself as a romantic and elegant man. Wherever he went, he would receive the shy glances of women. It was rare for him to get close to a woman, but he was humiliated like this. He flew into a rage out of humiliation. With an ashen face, he flicked his sleeves and left. Yiqing Luo picked up the tray and after washing the bowls and chopsticks, she placed it on the wooden rack by the side and turned around to leave. He had wasted quite a lot of time on this pair of siblings. Remembering that the ghost doctor had told him to return to the medicine refining room earlier, he quickened his pace and took a shortcut towards the library. The path from the cafeteria to the library was between the male and female dormitories. Because the dormitory management was very strict, no male students were allowed to climb over the walls of the female dormitory. This path was also blocked because many male students wanted to go to the female dormitory, but the dormitory management broke their legs, causing this path to be blocked. Yiqing Luo's figure was petite and her steps were light. Even if she was blocked, it wasn't too strenuous for her to walk. She crossed the small path and was about to take the main road to the library when a strong arm suddenly wrapped around her slender waist from behind. The elegant scent of sandalwood instantly filled her nostrils. The man's broad chest was tightly pressed against her soft back. That scorching temperature through her clothes seemed as though it was going to burn Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's body stiffened as her little hand held onto the large palm on her waist. You're really heartless. You've really thrown me to the back of your mind. The man's voice resounded in her ears. His tone was filled with displeasure. Yiqing Luo's petite body trembled, hearing his grumbling words. A sense of guilt arose in her heart. Ever since she was sent to the library pavilion as a punishment and met the ghost doctor, There were too many things happening and she indeed did not have the time to care about Zhou Xian. He even stayed in Long Yunzhan's spiritual energy treasure land for an entire night. Zhou Xian would come to her dormitory every night and hug her to sleep together. But yesterday she was assassinated and her dormitory was destroyed. He broke the rules again. How anxious would Zhou Xian be when he knew that she had suffered a serious internal injury? Yiqing Luo put herself in Zhou Xian's shoes and she could empathize with that kind of anxiety. It was no wonder that Zhou Xian could not keep his composure and started to grumble at her in broad daylight. "I'm sorry, Xian." Yiqing Luo turned around in Zhou Xian's arms and faced him. Two small hands circled around Zhou Xian's waist. "I've made you worry." The moment she raised her eyes, she met with Zhou Xian's eyes. Those blood veins were like an enchanting blossoming flower. The peach blossoms glistened like a pool of spring water, flickering with flowing light. His obsidian black eyes reflected Yiqing Luo's countenance. His hair was slightly messy. It was obvious that he had not taken care of it for a long time. His brows were slightly furrowed, filled with deep worry. This one look made Yiqing Luo's heart thumped hard as it trembled fiercely. Her fair little hands trembled as she caressed Zhou Xian's face. His smooth chin already had some stubble which was slightly prickly to the touch. His peerless face still had his usual devilish charm, but it was hard to hide his haggardness. Especially since his skin was too fair, the green shadow at the corner of his eyes was even more obvious. "Now that you know you're sorry, will you still dare to mess around like this in future?" Zhou Xian held Yiqing Luo's hand. His tone was like a child's grumbling, but his eyes were filled with joy from seeing Yiqing Luo safe and sound. Yiqing Luo shook her head as she rubbed her face against his chest. Her cheeks were burning hot and her ears were filled with an extremely rhythmic heartbeat, which made her feel indescribably at ease. Chapter 404. How dare he? To make the high and mighty Dizun worry about him like this. He felt sorry for her and she also felt sorry for him. "Last night you didn't sleep at all." Yiqing Luo's voice was gentle, revealing a tinge of heartache. Zhou Xian lowered his head slightly as he placed his chin on her neck, sniffing the lady's fragrance. That restless heart in his heart slowly calmed down. His girl had met with the killers yesterday. At that critical moment he could only stand at the top of the tall building and watch. He wanted to show himself to save Yiqing Luo, to become her strongest support when she was in danger. But he couldn't. He loved Yiqing Luo, but at the same time he was the Imperial Palace's palace lord, shouldering the Imperial Palace's mission. If he were to show himself now, it would definitely attract the Academy's attention. All of his plans would fail. Hence he attracted Long Yunzhan. But he had not expected that after Qi exhausted the sacred beast's energy to allow Long Yunzhan to transform into a dragon, in order to charge into the array barrier, it forced out the dragon's energy. It could be seen that in Long Yunzhan's heart, Yiqing Luo had already occupied a very important position. But it was because of yesterday's killer incident which made Zhou Xian even more determined to let Yiqing Luo grow up on her own. He finally understood why Yiqing Luo wanted to walk side by side with him, and not let him protect her under her wings. Because Yiqing Luo wasn't willing to be his burden. She wanted to be his assistant, an assistant who could help him. His identity meant that he had too much helplessness. He had no way to stay by Yiqing Luo's side all the time. And his identity also meant that the people around him would meet with many unknown dangers because of him. He was actually very clear that if Long Yunzhan wasn't able to transform into a dragon and kill those killers easily, he would absolutely take the risk of being discovered to save Yiqing Luo. The degree of care he had for Yiqing Luo had exceeded his imagination. Zhou Xian concealed the deep meaning in his eyes as his arms tightened. "Promise me, don't let yourself be in a dangerous situation in future." Yiqing Luo smiled as the smile on her lips deepened. "I will protect myself well." She told Zhou Xian about how she met the ghost doctor in the library pavilion, then being chased by assassins and finally meeting the blue dragon. "The Academy has arranged a new dormitory for us. I reckon that we'll only be able to move in after we return to the Academy during the holidays. Tonight I'll stay in the spiritual Qi treasure land to cultivate. I reckon that when I wake up tomorrow my internal injuries should be completely healed." Yiqing Luo explained where she went last night. "Find a place and have a good rest for 2 days. We'll meet again when we return to Three Springs sect." Chasing me away just like that. Zhou Xian rubbed his head against her neck. That scorching breath blew on her earlobe from time to time. Yiqing Luo endured the numbing feeling as her little hand clutched the robes around his waist tightly. Ah Xian, I can't bear to part with you, but what I should do now is to work hard to raise my own strength. I don't want you to worry about me. Silly girl. Zhou Xian sighed softly as his palm covered Yiqing Luo's head, pulling the both of them apart. He lowered his eyes and stared into the woman's enchanting eyes as he gently kissed her on the lips. No matter how powerful you become, I will always worry about you. How could he not be worried? But no matter how worried he was, Zhou Xian couldn't do something like intentionally distancing himself from her just to prevent her from getting hurt. He couldn't bear to, and he couldn't do it. This sweet kiss was gentle and lingering, deeply hooking Yiqing Luo. Chapter 405. By the time Yiqing Luo returned to the pill refining room, it was already 2 hours later. The ghost doctor's originally dark and gloomy face was now even darker. A pair of cold eyes stared straight at Yiqing Luo. You took so long just to have a meal? Something happened and delayed me. Yiqing Luo lowered her head as she gave a low laugh. Ghost doctor gave a cold harumph as his face turned gloomy, troublesome. Yiqing Luo gave a few dry laughs. Ghost doctor saw her look and couldn't be bothered to scold her as he flicked his sleeves and entered the pill refining secret room again. Following that, Yiqing Luo automatically started to tidy up the other medicine cabinet. With the experience of tidying up in the morning, the second medicine cabinet was much easier to tidy up. After she had tidied up the medicinal herbs and names in the 2 medicine cabinets, these medicinal herbs' shapes and effects were all recorded in Yiqing Luo's mind. Yiqing Luo dusted her hands as she scanned the medicine cabinet from top to bottom to ensure that she didn't miss out on any drawer. She turned back and tidied up the 2 messy wooden tables. Ghost doctor didn't return. Yiqing Luo surveyed the surroundings, and on seeing the messy bookshelves, she automatically tidied up the bookshelves. She remembered that the last time she bumped into this place, she accidentally opened the pill refining secret room. This time she paid attention and carefully avoided the mechanism. These books which Ghost Doctor had stored were all related to pill refining. There were records of various medicinal herbs' geographical locations, and there were records and legends regarding the origins of the medicinal herbs. As she continued to tidy up, there were quite a number of rare medicinal pill formulas. Yiqing Luo flipped through it and even saw a few familiar formulas. These were the formulas which she had seen from the 100 Pill Refining book. The 100 Pill Refining book was something which Old Man Song had hidden for a very, very long time. Even if it wasn't a few thousand years old, it would at least be a few hundred years old. If this were to be leaked out, it would definitely cause a bloodbath. There were quite a number of formulas in these books which belonged to Ghost Doctor. It showed how rare and precious these books were. Yiqing Luo tidied up as she flipped through these books. If there was something which she was interested in, she would spend more time and effort to memorize it all. Time passed slowly, one breath at a time. Yiqing Luo had already tidied up to the last shelf. Just as he was about to move a stool to step on it, he heard a few ladies' ridiculing laughter coming from outside the pill refining room. Didn't they say that Yiqing Luo had been punished to the 2nd story to clean up? Why don't I see him? Could it be that he secretly ran away? If you run, you'll be going against the instructor's orders. Let's split up and look for him. If we can't find him, we'll inform Instructor He and Instructor Chu. Soon after, the sound of several footsteps could be heard walking back and forth. The soundproofing of the medicine refining room had been designed to allow the Ghost Doctor to refine medicine in peace. Moreover, the Ghost Doctor had been afraid of trouble, and because of that, it had been designed very well. By right, under the circumstances of the pill refining room being sealed, Yiqing Luo shouldn't be able to hear the discussions outside. It was just that. Yiqing Luo didn't know what was going on. Ever since she came out from the profound Qi treasure land this morning, her perception and acuity seemed to have increased by quite a bit. Separated by the thick walls, the footsteps and discussions of the students outside could be heard clearly in his ears. Obviously, these people were here to see her make a fool of herself. Yiqing Luo was a little speechless. Was she really so hated? It was just a punishment of cleaning the library pavilion. In the afternoon, Shangguan Liuli had chided her, and now she had to be chided by others. Chapter 406. Yiqing Luo put down the book in her hands and silently walked to the side of the door as she opened a small gap. She saw a few female students walking around outside the library pavilion, pushing open one reading room after another as they searched for Yiqing Luo. They didn't dare to call out loudly, afraid that the administrator would be called over. All of them called out Yiqing Luo's name softly. Yiqing Luo's brows twitched. Why did she have a feeling of soul calling? It looked like if these people didn't find her, they probably wouldn't let this matter rest. Damn it. They were all people who had too much time on their hands. They didn't want to improve themselves, but her time was very precious. Suppressing the raging primitive energy in her heart, Yiqing Luo shut her eyes as she silently recited the incantation, and her figure suddenly swayed. In a blink of an eye, she disappeared from the pill refining room. The entrance of the pill refining secret passage split open and Ghost Doctor walked out with a gloomy face. Before he could open his mouth to berate Yiqing Luo for creating trouble again, he saw Yiqing Luo's figure as though it had blended into the air, disappearing without a trace. Little by little, a trace of astonishment appeared on his wrinkled face. He immediately congealed his senses, sensing Yiqing Luo's position. In the reading room not too far away, he sensed Yiqing Luo's weak presence, and the astonishment in his eyes grew by several degrees. In an instant, she silently shifted her position. Wasn't this the legendary secret method? This freshman, how was she able to display such a secret method? In the reading room, Yiqing Luo pretended to clean up as she patted the books on the bookshelf, arranging them properly one by one. Suddenly, the reading room's door was opened by someone. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes, recognizing her at one glance. High Profound Classes student, Yan Xiaoyi's half-sister with extremely high innate talent, Yan Zhenfei. She's here. Yiqing Luo is here. The minute Yan Zhenfei saw Yiqing Luo, she immediately stuck her head out and shouted. A few hurried footsteps were heard. 3 female students blocked the reading room's door. This line up. Yiqing Luo put down the book in her hands, turned around and smiled. I know you all worship me and are so agitated to see me. Are you all here to ask for my autograph? Bah. Yan Zhenfei spat and turned to hug the arm of the female student behind her. Sister Xuelon, look at her. She's been punished for 2 days in a row. Her reputation is ruined, but she still doesn't know it. Lu Xuelan's beautiful eyes squinted slightly. Her expression was filled with pride as she examined Yiqing Luo. It was undeniable that Yiqing Luo's looks were too stunning. Coupled with her extremely lazy attitude as if she didn't care about anything, it added a bit of charm to her. Moreover, the temperament that she exuded was so unruly and unrestrained, yet at ease and at ease. Indeed, she had the capital to make people unable to shift their gazes away from her. Lu Xuelon hated Yiqing Luo's beauty, but at the same time, Yiqing Luo's existence was beneficial to her. No one was willing to be born under someone else. It was the same for her. In terms of appearance, talent, and profound rank, she was no worse than Lu Xueyu. Just because Lu Xueyu was born a year earlier than her, she had to become Lu Xueyu's foil. But usually she and Lu Xueyu had a deep sisterly relationship, running errands for Lu Xueyu everywhere. Lu Xuelon had enough of these things. Hoping and waiting, finally Yiqing Luo's appearance. She didn't like Yiqing Luo, but as the saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. If she was able to rope in Yiqing Luo and completely make Lu Xueyu step down, then the position of vice president would be hers. Chapter 407. Yan Zhenfei's and the other female students' expressions changed instantly. What happened to finding trouble? How did it become helping Yiqing Luo? Due to Lu Xuelan's status, the both of them had their doubts, but they didn't dare to say a single word. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed as she laughed lightly. Help me? Acting vice president is so kind. That's natural. As the faculty council's vice president, I naturally have to be considerate of students. This is the faculty council's aim. Lu Xuelon apparently didn't hear the ridicule in Yiqing Luo's words and thought that she was praising herself as a smile appeared on her face. Yiqing Luo laughed silently in her heart. This Lu Xuelon was really not suitable to stand on such a high ground. Not even a third of her sisters. At least Lu Xueyu knew how to conceal her own thoughts, and other than Si Yenmu's matters, her brain spun extremely quickly. If this Lu Xuelon really became the vice president of the faculty council, She would probably be scolded by Xian Mu to the point of being drenched with dog's blood. Just one look at Lu Shuelon and Yiqing Luo knew what she was planning. Acting Vice President. Yan Zhenfei's brows creased slightly as she gently tugged Lu Shuelan's sleeve. She's not praising. Shut up. Lu Shuelon berated coldly as her expression sunk. Aren't you going to help student Yi clean the library pavilion? Yan Zhenfei lowered her eyelids as she didn't dare to say another word. She pulled the female student next to her into the reading room to help Yiqing Luo tidy up. Everything in the reading room had been tidied up by Qiao Jin and the rest yesterday, so they didn't need their help at all. Moreover, Lu Shuelon didn't have any good intentions. No need. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and stopped the both of them. I don't need any help. If there's nothing, please leave and don't disturb me. She had tried her best to make her tone gentle and polite. But the three of them apparently didn't think so. Yan Zhenfei was originally suppressing a ball of fire in her heart because of Lu Shuelan's command, and without thinking she pointed at Yiqing Luo and rebuked. Don't be unappreciative. Acting Vice President asked us to help you because he thinks highly of you. What right do you have to reject him? That's right, a student from the devil class with such a notorious reputation. How dare he act so arrogantly? Another female student was also displeased. They were all high profound class students and had always been used to being high and mighty. Since when was it the turn of a devil class student to point fingers? But a bright red handprint appeared on Yan Zhenfei's face. She screamed in pain and covered her face. Her cheeks were swollen. She stared at Yiqing Luo but realized that Yiqing Luo was standing at the same spot, as though she had not moved at all. But Yiqing Luo raised her fair little hand and gently stroked it, totally indicating that this slap was from her. You're really thick-skinned, it hurts my hand. Yiqing Luo looked like she was hit and sighed. My poor little hand, sigh. Yan Zhenfei's eyes were red. This slap had almost caused her teeth to fall out. It was so painful that when she moved her facial muscles slightly, she felt a tearing pain. Yiqing Luo totally didn't bother about Yan Zhenfei's anger as she slowly turned her head and looked at the female student on the side. The female student subconsciously covered her face filled with horror. How on earth did Yiqing Luo's slap land on her? They totally didn't see Yiqing Luo moving at all. Yiqing Luo. Lu Shuelan's expression wasn't too good as her forced smile froze on her face. Although Yiqing Luo's slap landed on Yan Zhenfei's face. Chapter 408. Yiqing Luo sneered. I don't have a good temper. Don't come and provoke me if you don't have the ability, otherwise I'll beat up whoever comes. Lu Shuelon narrowed her eyes as her eerie gaze sized up Yiqing Luo's hand. 2 days ago she had heard Yiqing Jian mention that Yiqing Luo was the one who trained the intruders in the forest. She had just become the acting vice president, and such a huge incident had already happened. If the news spread to the elder quarters, Elder Yunxiang would not be the only one to suffer, she would as well. Yesterday there was the matter of an outside assassin trying to assassinate Yiqing Luo, causing the academy's students to be on tenterhooks as they started to question the academy's safety. There were even some students from the high profound class who didn't keep their mouths shut and revealed the trespassers. They were all guessing if the intruders that day were these assassins. In this time of panic, the students placed their hopes on the faculty council. Lu Shuelon was also very anxious. If the intruders were killers, then those intruders absolutely had nothing to do with Yiqing Luo. Especially when they heard Shangguan Fangyi mention that when they tested Yiqing Luo obviously didn't seem to have suffered any internal injury, and even gave Yiqing Jian a good thrashing. Today she heard that Yiqing Luo had been punished by the instructors, and had agreed with Intermediate Profound Class 2's class monitor, Xie Yan, that Devil class would join in the inter-class competition 8 months later. He became even more suspicious. Under Yan Zhenfei's invitation, Lu Shuelon decided to come to the library to take a look. To test if Yiqing Luo was injured and at the same time to rope Yiqing Luo in to get rid of Lu Shueyu completely. What Lu Shuelon had not expected was that Yiqing Luo totally didn't fall for her tricks. Yiqing Luo, you've offended so many people. I'd like to see what other backing you have and how long you can stay in the Heavenly Academy. Lu Shuelan's beautiful eyes were gloomy as she stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. Since they couldn't be allies, they were enemies. Anyway, Yiqing Luo and Lu Shueyu's relationship was like fire and water. so she wasn't worried that Yiqing Luo would join hands with Lu Shuiyu. Lu Shualon snorted coldly. Just when she was about to leave, she heard the administrator's loud voice coming from the second floor. Students of the high profound class, just read your books, don't keep yelling. If you don't want to read, then scram. As he spoke, the administrator walked over. On seeing Yiqing Luo, that incomparably fierce face revealed anger. It's you again. What are you doing in the library all day long? Seeing the administrator appear, a cunning look flashed across Yan Zhenfei's eyes. The hostility between her brows immediately disappeared, and she put on a pitiful look. She covered her face and sobbed softly. Administrator, we just came here to look for some cultivation books to read. Classmate Yi beat me up without any explanation. Vice President Dai and classmate Fong were just standing up for me, so their voices were a little louder. Hearing Yan Zhenfei's words and seeing the handprint on her face, the administrator's face darkened. He directly stretched out his hand towards Yiqing Luo as he tugged her collar. A student like you, my library pavilion doesn't welcome you. Making trouble all day long, get out of here. I'll talk to your instructor later and ask him not to throw people into the library when he punishes you. But just as his hand was about to grab Yiqing Luo's collar, a white shadow flashed past. The administrator hadn't managed to react in time when his wrist instantly turned numb. He clutched his arm and didn't make any sound, but his face was filled with agony. It was so painful that his face turned pale as he broke out in cold sweat. He clenched his teeth, enduring the pain as he looked at the thing which had struck his wrist. A white porcelain bottle fell onto the floor as it shook slightly. That was a porcelain bottle which stored pills. This porcelain bottle. Why did it look a little like... Chapter 409. The door of the alchemy room, which had always been tightly shut, was now half open. The dazzling luminous pearl cast a long shadow. Ghost Doctor was filled with a vicious aura as he stood at the entrance with a gloomy expression, his gaze staring eerily in the direction of Yiqing Luo and the others. The administrator lowered his head in fear. Lord Ghost Doctor. The 3 female students beside him had been in the academy for many years, so they had naturally heard of the rumors about the Ghost Doctor. They also knew that the medicine refining room was a forbidden area on the second floor of the library. Whether it was the high profound class or the class of gods, no one was allowed to step into the forbidden area. Because of this, no one had ever seen the Ghost Doctor herself. When he heard the administrator's shout, his eyes immediately widened. How lucky were they today to actually meet the elusive Ghost Doctor? Lu Shualon was the first to react. She hurriedly dragged the 2 female students behind her and lowered her head towards the Ghost Doctor. Lord Ghost Doctor. The Ghost Doctor's face was dark and cold. Her gaze was like a sharp knife as she stared coldly at the administrator. The administrator felt goosebumps all over his body as he broke out in a cold sweat. Lord Ghost Doctor, I'm really sorry. I've let a few ignorant students disturb your refinement. I'll chase them out right now. The administrator thought that the Ghost Doctor's rage was entirely because these students had interrupted his concoction. Enduring the sharp pain in his wrist, he grabbed another student with each hand and walked out. But when his hand stretched out towards Yiqing Luo once again, Ghost Doctor's porcelain bottle struck his wrist once again. It was precisely in the same position. This time it was so painful that the manager cried out on the spot. He clutched his wrist and looked at the Ghost Doctor with a face full of fear and confusion. When Lu Shualon and the others saw this, they did not dare to make a sound. They lowered their heads, hoping that their presence would be reduced to the minimum. Come here. The Ghost Doctor's voice was ice cold, his gaze cold. The administrator's sturdy body suddenly trembled. The sharp pain in his arm caused his face to contort in pain. Hearing the Ghost Doctor's words, no matter how scared he was, he didn't dare to retort. Lifting his feet, he walked towards the Ghost Doctor. But a slender figure was even faster than him and walked in front of him. Yiqing Luo's footsteps were light and graceful, as though there wasn't a single bit of fear or terror, nor did she tremble from the powerful pressure that Ghost Doctor had unleashed. She walked straight towards the Ghost Doctor, openly. Hey, get back here. That was the Ghost Doctor. If you offend the Ghost Doctor, even if you die 10 times, it won't be enough to compensate. The manager's face instantly turned pale. He had been a librarian in the academy for decades and had always been in charge of the library. Naturally, he knew the ghost doctor's temper and personality. He hated trouble and didn't think about the academy at all. There was once a student who kept pestering him to learn the skills of refining medicine, but was beaten out by the ghost doctor with a single palm strike. That student was seriously injured and had to leave the academy. Later on, it was said that he had completely become a cripple. However, the one who made the move was the ghost doctor. That student's family did not dare to cause trouble for the academy. Student Yi. The administrator saw Yi Qingluo walking towards ghost doctor's direction in a daze. He endured the pain in his wrist as he dashed forward, trying to pull Yi Qingluo back. Although he didn't have any good impression of Yi Qingluo, but she was after all a student of the academy, and as a senior figure in the academy, he wasn't willing to see any student getting hurt. But the scene in front of him caused the administrator to suddenly stop in his tracks. He staggered and almost fell to the ground. He saw Yi Qingluo walking in front of Ghost Doctor and nodding her head slightly at him. Senior Ghost Doctor. Chapter 4:10. The administrator and the 3 female students behind him were all stunned. Especially the administrator. His mouth was agape as his face was filled with disbelief. Had he developed an auditory hallucination developing hallucinations? Sir Ghost Doctor actually didn't slap that student out? Actually used such an amiable tone to speak to that student? If Yi Qingluo knew the administrator's inner thoughts, she would probably ridicule endlessly. Damn it. This is called amiable? This fiendish look as though I owe him 1,800,000 coins. This is also called amiable? However, in the administrator's eyes, he was used to seeing how Ghost Doctor ruthlessly slapped one after another. Ghost Doctor didn't take any action and only said a few words, which was already considered as the most amiable. Who asked my disciple to scram out? Ghost Doctor's vision shifted away from Yi Qingluo, locking onto the administrator. When the administrator heard the 2 words disciple, he was instantly struck by lightning from a clear sky. His ears were filled with the sound of thunder exploding. Not only him, Lu Shuelon, Yan Zhenfei and the others also had a look as though they had seen a ghost. Yi Qingluo was Ghost Doctor's disciple? How could that be possible? Lu Shuelon was just hooting, saying that Yi Qingluo no longer had any backing and now a Ghost Doctor appeared. She felt as though her face was being slapped. Her hands, which were hanging by the side of her body, clenched tightly into fists. Why was Yi Qingluo so lucky? What mysterious and noble people, all became her backing. First it was the Overlord, then it was Gui Yu and now a Ghost Doctor. Lu Shuelon was so hateful that her lungs were about to explode. But on her face she didn't dare to reveal any of it. The administrator's well-built body kept trembling as his voice trembled. Ghosts or Ghost Doctor, I didn't know that student Yi is your disciple. How would I dare to ask her to scram? Ghost Doctor gave a cold laugh. The administrator trembled even more violently. He suddenly slapped his own face. Left and right slaps, the strength was huge. 2 slaps and his entire face swelled up. Sir Ghost Doctor, the one who spoke rudely was me. The one who had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai is also me. It has nothing to do with these students. The administrator raised his head and after meeting the Ghost Doctor's eyes he immediately lowered his head again. I beg Lord Ghost Doctor, please release this group of students. When Lu Shuelon heard this, her face immediately turned pale. She dragged the 2 female students and knelt on the ground. Yes. This matter has nothing to do with us. It was the administrator who told student Yi to get out. We don't know anything. These words really made one's heart turn cold. The administrator only glanced at them and also knelt down. It's my fault, I beg Lord Ghost Doctor to let these students go. Yi Qingluo slowly narrowed her eyes as she swept past Lu Shuelon and the others who were kneeling on the ground as she sneered. This smile seemed exceptionally clear and ethereal in the empty library, adding some mysteriousness to it. The Ghost Doctor turned her head and glanced at her, her expression cold. Then she said lightly, since you spoke rudely, you have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Why do you still need this mouth and this pair of eyes? Hearing these words, the manager's face instantly turned pale. Lu Shuelon, who was kneeling on the ground, turned soft as she was so frightened that she directly knelt down on the ground. The administrator glanced sideways at the 3 frightened students behind him as he clenched his teeth. Yes, spoke rudely, You have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. This mouth, this pair of eyes, indeed cannot be kept. Saying that, he raised his hand and congealed a burst of profound qi as he stabbed towards his own eyes. Chapter 4:11. Dong. A soft sound was heard and the administrator gave a muffled groan. Lu Shuelon and the others slowly opened their eyes and saw a bewitching red glow flashing past. That was Yiqing Luo's feather fan, like a ball of blazing fire, forming an arc in midair as it returned to Yiqing Luo's hand. Whereas the administrator who was struck by that feather fan earlier, his sturdy body was on the verge of collapsing onto the ground. Disciple is not satisfied with the way you handled this? Ghost Doctor squinted his eyes as he stared coldly at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo waved her feather fan and pressed against her lower lip as she casually brushed past the administrator and gave a faint laugh. Since administrator has already admitted his mistake, then let's just forget about this matter. Ghost Doctor gave a cold laugh. The administrator laid on the ground as his clothes were soaked in sweat. He trembled as he climbed up and was just about to continue kneeling when he heard Ghost Doctor's cold voice. Still not going to scram. The administrator was stunned as his eyes revealed a look of ecstasy. In other words, Ghost Doctor had let him off. He immediately kowtowed on the ground. Thank you, Sir Ghost Doctor, thank you, Student Yi. Saying that, he got up and dragged the 3 female students as he speedily left the second story of the library pavilion, not daring to stay any longer. Yiqing Luo saw the administrator leaving and cupped her fists towards Ghost Doctor. Thank you, Senior Ghost Doctor, for stepping forward. Ghost Doctor flicked his sleeves as he turned around and walked into the pill refining room. Yiqing Luo rubbed her nose as she followed him in. She was very curious. Why would the Ghost Doctor, who had always hated trouble, get involved in such a dispute? Just a single disagreement and he would lose his mouth and eyes, so brutal and bloody. Stand up for her? It seemed like in Ghost Doctor's heart, she hadn't reached the level where he would stand up for her. After Ghost Doctor entered the pill refining room, he stared eerily at Yiqing Luo as his half-squinted eyes revealed a sense of scrutiny. Yiqing Luo's hair stood on end from his stare as she had a taste of the administrator's feeling earlier and it wasn't a good feeling. Why did you help him? After a while, Ghost Doctor asked coldly. Help him? Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes in puzzlement as she realized that he was referring to the administrator. No reason, I just feel that the Academy's elders who are thinking for the students are worthy of respect. Yiqing Luo replied calmly. Seeing that the administrator was even willing to destroy his own eyes so that Lu Shuelon and the others could leave unscathed, this action made Yiqing Luo recall that when she walked towards Ghost Doctor, he had also disregarded Ghost Doctor's prestige and wanted to go up to stop her. This action aroused her compassion. Although the administrator was a little fierce and his words were a little harsh, his heart for the sake of the students was sincere. In this dirty academy there was still someone with such a pure heart. Yiqing Luo respected him. Hearing Yiqing Luo's reply, Ghost Doctor gave a cold harumph. You're rather kind. Hey. Yiqing Luo smiled in disbelief. Perhaps the current her was indeed much more soft-hearted than before. This word had nothing to do with her in the past. But ever since she came to this strange world and met people who melted the ice in her heart, she was indeed living more and more like a human. However, she liked her current self very much. At least he had flesh and blood and he had his own feelings. Unlike before, he was like a cold killing machine living like that. Her lips curled as she smiled. Isn't Senior Ghost Doctor the same as well? Even if I don't open my mouth to stop him, I'm afraid Senior will stop him. Ghost Doctor's expression was icy cold as he didn't open his mouth to rebuke. Chapter 4:12. The Ghost Doctor stared at the beautiful young lady in front of him. Her smile was very bright, without any impurities, clean and pure. A pair of curved, enchanting eyes were overflowing with color. Recalling what happened earlier when Yiqing Luo was facing the administrator and the other 3 female students, she was calm and unperturbed in the face of danger, her brows loosened slightly. This young lady was getting more and more interesting. His eyes flashed and he narrowed his sharp eyes. I thought I had already answered! ! Yiqing Luo was shocked, so Ghost Doctor also knew cold humor. She choked on her saliva and coughed violently. She opened her eyes wide and stared fixedly at the Ghost Doctor. The ghost doctor's expression hadn't changed from start to finish. Only her eyes had narrowed slightly, revealing a cold glint. Yiqing Luo shuddered. Senior ghost doctor's meaning is, "You're really prepared to take me in as your disciple? Do I look like someone who jokes?" The ghost doctor snorted coldly. Yiqing Luo shook her head immediately. It didn't look like it. Absolutely not at all. That meant, the ghost doctor really wanted to take her as his disciple? However, after these 2 days of interaction, she felt that the ghost doctor's impression of her wasn't that good. She was just a dispensable existence. When she came back from lunch, she also had a fierce look on her face. Why did he suddenly seem like a different person? Strange. It was too strange. There was definitely a trap. Yiqing Luo was vigilant, her eyes were like torches. "Senior Gi, just say what you want to say. We're honest people and don't do underhanded things." The ghost doctor's eyebrows twitched. As expected, taking in disciples was simply too troublesome. Especially when he was taking in such a weird little girl. He frowned and did not want to get himself into trouble again. He directly asked the question he wanted to ask. "Where did you learn the secret technique you used before?" "Secret technique?" Yiqing Luo's expression congealed. Could it be that when he used teleportation just now, the ghost doctor had seen him? He wanted to learn about this secret technique from her. Was that why he appeared to help her when the administrator chased her away? That secret technique, if I'm not mistaken, should be the King of Thieves' teleportation secret technique. The ghost doctor's eyes narrowed, sharp and incisive. Teleportation secret technique. The ghost doctor would never make a mistake. Even if tens of thousands of years had passed, he would never forget it. These were their brothers from back then. He stopped his train of thought, his eyes revealing a bit of urgency. If he was able to find out the origin of the secret art from Yiqing Luo, perhaps he might be able to find those few brothers of his. But Ghost Doctor's words had already blocked Yiqing Luo's way out. For the Ghost Doctor to be able to accurately name the secret technique as well as the creator of the secret technique, she naturally had a deep understanding of secret techniques. Yiqing Luo shouldn't try to use rubbish to bluff him. Yiqing Luo muttered to herself for a moment as she pursed her pink lips slightly, secretly guessing how she should explain the origin of the blink movement secret art. She naturally couldn't tell anyone about the Azure Dew bracelets. After all, this thing did not belong to this world. Moreover, if news of this were to spread with her current strength, she would have no way of guarding the Azure Dew bracelet. After pondering for some time, Yiqing Luo decisively decided to drag that evildoer of hers out. Soldiers are trained for a day to be used in a moment. If she didn't make use of Zhou Xian's identity now, when would she be able to do so? She nodded her head as she gave a bashful smile. That is indeed the blink movement secret art. I have some friendship with the Overlord and he felt that my profound grade is too low, making me easily bullied, so he taught me this secret art so that I can use it to escape. The Ghost Doctor's brows creased. Overlord. Yiqing Luo nodded her head repeatedly. That's right, it's Zhou Xian. Decisively aim her target at Zhou Xian. The Ghost Doctor remained silent as his eyelids drooped down, muttering softly, Overlord. Overlord. After muttering for some time, he raised his head with an agitated look as his brows creased. You're talking about that Imperial Palace's palace lord who had recently risen. People call him Overlord Zhou Xian? What? There was actually someone in this world who didn't know Zhou Xian. Chapter 413. The so-called legend, wasn't it something which everyone in the world didn't know about and knew about? She thought that Ghost Doctor was talking about Zhou Xian because he was afraid of Zhou Xian's power. She had not expected. Ghost Doctor was thinking, who on earth was Zhou Xian? Alright, Ghost Doctor's world only consisted of refining pills and no other miscellaneous stuff. The next time you see that fellow from the Imperial Palace, ask him to come and see me. Ghost Doctor's next sentence was shocking. Yiqing Luo's mouth turned into an O shape once again. He was indeed Ghost Doctor. Even when facing Zhou Xian, he totally disregarded him. No, now wasn't the time to be tangled about whether Ghost Doctor recognized Zhou Xian or not. But Ghost Doctor wanted to meet Zhou Xian. Then wouldn't the matter of her pushing the blame to Zhou Xian be exposed? But since Ghost Doctor had already said so, Yiqing Luo could only brace herself as she gave a few dry laughs. No problem, Senior Ghost Doctor's request, Even if I have to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a sea of flames, I will definitely do it for you. The blame which she pushed out, even if she had to kneel down, she had to push it down. Towards Yiqing Luo's talkative words, Ghost Doctor's expression didn't change at all. His gaze swept across the pill refining room and discovered that not only were the medicinal cabinets pasted neatly with medicinal herbs' names, even the messy bookshelves were stacked neatly. It had only been a few hours. This young lady's actions were rather fast. It seemed like she knew a lot about medicine refinement. Today, because he saw Yiqing Luo displaying her blink movement secret art, he appeared to help her out of her predicament, saying that he would take her in as his disciple. But at this moment he felt that his decision was simply right. Although it was a little troublesome, but if he took in a young lady with an extremely strong innate talent in pill refining, then it would save a lot of time in future. Alright, that's all for today, you can go back now. When Ghost Doctor turned his head back, he resumed his cold and aloof look. Saying that, he seemed to have thought of something as his brows creased into a bundle. Take your hand out. Yiqing Luo didn't know what was going on, but she still stretched out her hand. Ghost Doctor placed his hand on her pulse and helped to take her pulse. Your body's recovery ability isn't bad at all. If there's no accident, take another medicinal pill tonight and you'll be able to recover completely. Ghost Doctor took her pulse and casually waved Yiqing Luo's hand away. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up as her face revealed joy. He thought that he would need 3 to 5 days to fully recover, but he didn't expect that he would be completely healed tonight. The Ghost Doctor's elixirs, as well as the heaven and earth spiritual qi in the spiritual qi treasured land, were of great help to her internal injuries. Tomorrow the Academy will be on holiday for 3 days. Memorize all these books. Ghost Doctor walked to the front of the bookshelf and his gaze swept across the neatly arranged bookshelf as he casually picked out 3 books and threw them towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo caught it firmly and lowered her head to take a look. Of these 3 books, one was an introduction to rare medicinal herbs and their locations, another was a recipe for medicinal pills, and the last one was the detailed steps of refining medicinal pills. It was an entry-level book for refining medicine. Although the current Yiqing Luo had already reached the alchemist level of refining pills, but she was after all a half-baked alchemist and her alchemy foundation was still not enough. These books could help her consolidate her foundation. No matter what, no matter how talented one was, one's foundation was the most important. If one's foundation wasn't strong enough, even if one reached the peak, as long as someone pushed slightly from below, it was very likely that they would fall. It was like building a house. If the foundation wasn't strong enough, if there was an earthquake or a strong gale, this house would easily collapse. Yiqing Luo nodded her head as she kept those 3 books. Chapter 4:14. When Yiqing Luo walked down from the first story of the library pavilion, the administrator who had been fidgeting restlessly at the management counter immediately went up to welcome her. That fierce and rough face now carried a cautious expression. Yi, classmate Yi. When the surrounding students saw this, they all revealed a puzzled expression. Why was the administrator so respectful towards Yiqing Luo? As though he was afraid of Yiqing Luo? This must be a misconception. One must know that the library pavilion administrator was famous for his bad temper. He would shout at the students if there was any disagreement, and almost half of the students in the academy had been ravaged by his rough voice, which was like a bell. But now he was actually being so submissive in front of a new student and a new student from Devil class. Yiqing Luo noticed the surrounding students' gazes and knew that Lu Shuelon and the others were so frightened that they left directly, so she didn't dare to reveal the fact that she was Ghost Doctor's disciple. After all, Lu Shuelon and the others hated Yiqing Luo to the core. They were very clear that Yiqing Luo had many enemies, so how could they possibly reveal the fact that Ghost Doctor was backing her up? Yiqing Luo retracted her gaze and curled her lips towards the administrator. Everything will be fine as usual. The administrator responded and stood up to send Yiqing Luo out. This action attracted many students' guesses. After Yiqing Luo walked out of the library pavilion, she headed towards the Devil class's direction. It was nearing the time for Devil class's training. Yiqing Luo was thinking about the matter of accepting the intermediate profound class to participate in the class confrontation. Although Qiao Jin had already agreed to it, but Long Yunzhan was after all Devil class's class monitor, so she still had to talk to him about it. The minute she entered the second door, she heard a lady's crisp voice coming from the training ground. Your battle power isn't bad at all. Do you want to come again? This voice sounded unfamiliar. Devil class had new students again? On the training ground, most of the students had already arrived. Everyone didn't warm up like usual but gathered in a circle as though their emotions were ignited as they waved their arms and shouted. Indistinctly, there were some low shouts and collision sounds from a fight. Not long later, two figures were seen flying out from the crowd as they rolled onto the ground. The students who had gathered in a circle were shouting excitedly as they complained to the students who had been sent flying. The two students rubbed their waists and waved their hands. No more, no more. We're convinced. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes, and coincidentally, because those two students were sent flying, the students started to move to the two sides, opening up a path. Yiqing Luo saw a petite young lady dressed in the academy uniform being wrapped up by the crowd. With one hand on her waist, her delicate and exquisite face revealed a complacent smile. Her pitch-black watery eyes flashed with the craftiness of a cat. Yiqing Luo frowned. This was not a student from the devil class. But he looked a little familiar. Just as she was about to step forward to inquire about the situation, Yiqing Luo's chest suddenly surged with a scorching feeling. Her profound heart jade actually started to burn brilliantly in her chest. She stopped in her tracks and covered her chest. Looking at that young lady again, Yiqing Luo was stunned. He was so stunned that he even forgot the burning sensation in his chest. Behind the young girl, a black shadow rose up, like a guardian god, closely following the young girl. What shocked Yiqing Luo the most was that black shadow was a gigantic phantom of a beast faintly discernible. That was a cat, a pitch-black agile cat. Las Luo, that is the bloodline of the Beastman race. In her mind, Old Man Song's voice was heard. After the Beastman race transform into human form, every time they battle, they will summon their own bloodline, and this is also the bloodline which the contractor will inherit. Chapter 4:15. Old Man Song's voice was low. Generally speaking, humans can't see that shadow. If the shadow is seen and the enemy directly attacks it, it will cause damage to the original body. His voice revealed some doubt. How can you see the black cat shadow? Yiqing Luo also had doubts in her heart. All of a sudden, her profound heart jade became incomparably hot. When she looked at that young girl again, she could already see the black cat shadow. Could it be related to the profound heart jade? This profound heart jade did not refer to the profound heart jade that Zhou Xian had formed for her. Because it seemed that before Zhou Xian formed the profound heart jade for her, she could already see through the profound grades of Wuxia and the other trash as well as the profound heart jade level. And every time this kind of heat would be transmitted from her chest. What exactly was going on? The young girl in the crowd, because she had defeated many students, was feeling proud of herself when she felt someone staring at her. Following the gaze, when she saw Yiqing Luo's face, the young girl smiled even more brilliantly. Elder sister, I finally see you. That young girl skipped and dashed towards Yiqing Luo. That pair of watery cat-like eyes sparkled with obvious excitement. Yiqing Luo discovered that when the young girl ran over, the black cat shadow behind her gradually disappeared. It seemed that only during battle, this bloodline shadow would appear to provide the young girl with strength. The young girl's hand hooked onto Yiqing Luo's arm. Elder sister, thanks to you saving me, I was able to escape this calamity. Kitty has nothing to repay you. From now on I will always follow by elder sister's side and protect elder sister. The young girl's soft hand and that intimate aura, Yiqing Luo didn't have the slightest bit of repulsion. That pair of black eyes overflowing with starlight didn't have the slightest bit of hypocrisy. The Beastman race's little cat beast. Where were her ears? And that tail? Yiqing Luo's gaze swept over her head and indeed saw that her two black furry ears were hidden under her hair, and that black tail behind her was also curled up, hidden under her uniform. From this look she was no different from a human. Oh right, elder sister, I still haven't introduced myself. The young girl smiled sweetly, her eyes sparkling with a lively luster. My name is Kitty Lee, it's Lee as in Leoli, not Lee as in fox. She tilted her head and smiled. Big sister, you can call me Kitty big sister. You don't have to introduce yourself. I know big sister, you're a really amazing person. All the big brothers and sisters in the class really admire big sister. Hearing Kitty Lee's words, the surrounding students turned their faces away in embarrassment. No one had expected that Kitty Lee would actually say out those words about them worshipping Yiqing Luo behind her back, right in front of her face. Looking at those students' distressed looks, Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly softened. A hint of gentleness also appeared on her beautiful face. Her delicate facial features were extremely gentle. Could be said that she was a peerless beauty. The surrounding students were dumbfounded for a moment. "Sister, you're so beautiful." Kitty Lee's curved eyebrows revealed envy as she rubbed her head against Yiqing Luo's arm. "Kitty Cat likes beautiful, sister. Do you want to contract Kitty Cat?" The soft touch on his arm was like a kitten rubbing against him. Contract her? This was the reason why Yiqing Luo chose to save her right from the start. To be able to contract a beast man and obtain the cat beast's bloodline inheritance, her own strength would also receive a huge upgrade. According to the current situation, Kitty Lee's ability seemed to be not bad. She was actually able to challenge several students alone. Then why was she in the heavenly training forest and met with the evil schemes of the high profound class students? Chapter 416. Contract. The surrounding students looked at each other in dismay. They only knew that the contract was used on magical beasts. Could it be that humans could contract as well? Everyone didn't think too much about it, only thinking that this young lady wanted to follow beside Yiqing Luo, to be her follower. "Who on earth are you?" Suddenly, a cold voice was heard from the other end of the training ground. Tong Ziqing's expression was icy cold, her brows knitted into a bundle as she stared at Kitty Lee with vigilance. "From the skills you displayed today, your profound grade must be above Mystic Profound 6th grade. And you don't panic in the face of danger, so you should be someone who is used to fighting. Most importantly, your speed is not wrong and your reaction is extremely strong. Why would you be caught by the high profound class students in the heavenly training forest and look so weak?" Tong Ziqing's words completely voiced out the doubts in Yiqing Luo's heart. Tong Ziqing didn't understand why Yiqing Luo risked being found out by the high profound class students to save Kitty Lee. Moreover, Yiqing Luo was seriously injured by Yiqing Qian's earth profound grade pressure. And all this was because of Kitty Lee. If it wasn't for Kitty Lee, Yiqing Luo wouldn't be seriously injured, and wouldn't be tested by Yiqing Qian, and wouldn't be punished by the instructors to tidy up the books in the library pavilion, and wouldn't be so helpless when facing the killers. Yiqing Luo's current reputation in the academy made her angry. If it wasn't for the assistant class monitor who had been persuading everyone, she might not be able to hold it in and directly beat up those people who were spreading rumors. Kitty Lee let go of Yiqing Luo's arm, tilted her head and blinked her bright and crafty eyes. "Because Kitty Lee is hungry." Hungry? What kind of excuse was that? Everyone couldn't believe it, but Kitty Lee explained seriously. Kitty Lee was locked in that lousy forest the minute she arrived at Nirvana Realm and had nothing to eat. Kitty Lee has been hungry for a long time. As she said that, she used her hands to gesture to open it up and repeated "so long" several times. Kitty Lee is so hungry that she can't move. How would she have the energy to run? That group of ferocious people couldn't see how cute Kitty was, so they beat Kitty up without any explanation. Kitty Lee's pink lips pouted slightly, showing some displeasure. If it wasn't for Big Sister saving Kitty Lee, those people would definitely want to bring Kitty Lee back to cook. Everyone was dumbfounded. What a heavy taste. Nowadays, even if there were people who ate human flesh, these students wouldn't dare to eat it in the academy. It was also because of these shocking words that the students did not pay much attention to the meaning of the words, "just arrived in the Nirvana realm," that Kitty Lee said. Ahem. Among the students, Baiming Lulu raised her hand weakly. Kitty didn't lie. When you brought her back, apart from the superficial wounds on her body, she did have an empty stomach for a long time. Tong Ziqing's expression became even more ashen. She stared at Kitty Lee for a long time before she snorted coldly and turned around to walk towards the small path of the academy. "Kitty Lee, don't take it to heart. Sister Ziqing is just jealous of you." An Ruopan looked at the direction where Tong Ziqing left and couldn't help but laughed. Now the one who worships Madame Qing Luo the most is Sister Ziqing. Now that she saw you monopolizing Madame Qing Luo, she doesn't feel good. Kitty Lee smiled till her eyes curved and once again held on to Yiqing Luo's arm, I want to form a contract with sister, and in future I will not let go of sister. Yiqing Luo was helpless. She wasn't a man to be snatched here and there by two beauties out of jealousy. Could it be that she wanted to kill both men and women? Activate the 3 palace and 6 courtyards mode. Chapter 417. Alright, the academy doesn't know how many students there are in the devil class. Since Kitty Cat is here, then stay in the devil class. Yiqing Luo rubbed Kitty Cat's head. She knew Kitty Cat's real identity, so naturally she believed in Kitty Cat's innocence. Although the beastmen were half human half beast, but to Old Man Tsong, the beastmen basically lived alone and would not intentionally blend into the human world. Deep in their bones they still had the purity of the beastmen. It's time for training, go ahead and train. Yiqing Luo was about to head towards the academy's small path when another student called out to her from behind. Yiqing Luo, I heard that you've already agreed to the interclass competition 8 months later, is that true? That student stared at Yiqing Luo eagerly as his hands were clasped together, extremely nervous. When the surrounding students heard this topic, the atmosphere instantly ignited. As Yiqing Luo was seriously injured and was assassinated by the killer, these students stayed in the academy today to ensure that Yiqing Luo was safe and sound. Because of that, they didn't know what happened in the academy today. The moment they heard the words interclass competition, the students' expressions changed. Interclass competition. This was a competition that all the classes wanted to participate in with all their might. If they were successful, they would be able to advance to a higher level class and obtain generous rewards, as well as receive the respect and admiration from everyone in the academy. More importantly, this was a proof of ability. For so many years, devil classes students had been hiding in the devil class, immersing themselves in cultivation and training to advance. Even if it was actual combat training, it would be one's own people fighting against one's own people. There was no sense of satisfaction at all. As for the Heavenly Academy's annual interclass competition, devil classes students wanted to take part in it so much that they almost went crazy. However, their class monitor had always rejected their requests with the excuse that the time wasn't right. Today, upon hearing that Yiqing Luo had agreed to the interclass competition 8 months later, all of them jumped up in joy as though they wanted to leap 3 feet into the air. I have indeed agreed to it. Yiqing Luo lightly curled her lips. After the students got her affirmation, they couldn't suppress the excitement in their hearts as they rushed forward and surrounded Yiqing Luo. Just as everyone wanted to lift Yiqing Luo up and shout excitedly, they heard Yiqing Luo spitting out 2 words. But everyone's hearts were in their throats as they stared at her. As for whether I can participate or not, firstly, I still need to seek the class monitor's approval. Secondly, I still need to see if the class monitor from class Xianxia can agree to my request. Thirdly, Yiqing Luo paused for a moment. Her voice suddenly became much louder and revealed a tone like she was trying to abduct a little brother. This is the most important point, is within these 8 months, can your strength reach the level of surpassing the high profound class and win first place in one fell swoop? When the third point was mentioned, the smiles on all the students' faces gradually froze. All of them fell silent. If they were to win against the intermediate profound class or tie with the high profound class, they would have full assurance and confidence. But to surpass the high profound class and win first place, one must know if the devil class really won the championship. The academy would definitely allow the powerful and mysterious devil class to participate in the competition. Chapter 418. If devil class won, it would be equivalent to smearing the Heavenly Academy's name. Their original thoughts were merely to take part in the interclass competition, to go through actual combat with the students from other classes, to raise their own ability. To them, promotion or ranking wasn't important at all. What they wanted was to prove to the entire academy's teachers and students that they weren't waste, and that they were strong enough to support the heavens. That was all. But Yiqing Luo's target was to win the championship. This to them was an extremely huge pressure. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she couldn't see the difficulty on their faces as her voice remained calm. If you have the confidence, then work hard to raise your own training in these 8 months. Lu and I will refine supplementary medicinal pills for you, and in terms of training, it will depend on your individual hard work and innate talent. The students became silent. They had no confidence. Do you know why I insist on you winning the championship? Just as the training grounds were in a state of silence, Yiqing Luo's clear and melodious voice rang leisurely. The students raised their heads as they looked at Yiqing Luo. Whereas at the other end of the training grounds, Qiao Jin and Yan Xiaoyi didn't make a sound. In their hearts, Devil class's students indeed had great growth, which was comparable to the High Profound class, but in terms of actual combat training and strategy, they were far from the High Profound class. Locking these students in Devil class to train had its pros and cons. Just like previously, they limited these students to raising their individual ability, but neglected everyone's ability to work together as a team. Now there was another huge problem placed in front of them. The only actual combat training for these students, other than their classmates, was the magical beasts in the heavenly training forest. If they were to take part in the inter-class competition to win the championship, it was probably impossible. Because you are Devil class's students. Yiqing Luo's gaze was as calm as still water without a single ripple. Her tone was also calm, but in that tone, there was something indistinctly following her voice scuttling their hearts. Devil class is Heavenly Academy's disgrace, a waste class in everyone's eyes. If you want to clear your name to announce to the entire continent or even Nirvana realm that you are not waste, the only way is. It's fine if you don't cry out, but once you cry out, it's shocking. The students' hearts seemed to have been struck by something fiercely as they trembled slightly. Yiqing Luo's expression was indifferent and her tone was very calm. However, for some unknown reason, those 9 simple words caused their hearts to surge with excitement. The reason why I agreed to the inter-class competition proposed by class monitor Xia is because I believe in you guys. Even I haven't given up on you, so why would you give up on yourselves? What is your dream? What was the target? You just want to be in the limelight during the inter-class competition and suppress the other classes to prove that Devil class isn't trash? What happens after that? Get beaten up by the students from the High Profound class and the class of gods and return to the Devil class? Is this enough to prove his name? No. It doesn't count. If they were defeated by the High Profound class or class of gods, their so-called reputation would just be a joke. In the end, he suffered a crushing defeat and left the arena with his tail between his legs. Was it enough to surpass the intermediate profound class? No. They were not satisfied. How could he be satisfied? After being a waste for so many years, he finally managed to get into the Heavenly Academy but was assigned to a waste class where even the masters looked down on him. Just to surpass the intermediate profound class, how could he be satisfied? As long as you have a strong belief, believe in your own self-confidence, have your own target, and want to become a strong person who is revered by others, then give me a good answer. Chapter 419. Although the students didn't reply, but their eyes were burning with hope as they were extremely fervent. You still have 8 months' time, and in these 8 months, we will use all means to train you. Yiqing Luo's vision finally fell onto Qiao Jin. As her lips curled into an extremely shallow arc, Qiao Jin understood her meaning, as he shrugged his shoulders indifferently, indicating to her to do whatever she wanted. Long Yunzhan had arranged Yiqing Luo into the class committee, and in this period of time, Yiqing Luo's ability was obvious to all. Now that Yiqing Luo had started to train everyone, they naturally didn't have any objections. Yiqing Luo then retracted her vision. Sweat and hard work, then you can exchange for what you want. No matter how tough the future is, how difficult it is, as long as you persevere on, what awaits you will be a sky full of red clouds. When her words fell, Yiqing Luo paused for a moment. The entire training ground was so silent that even the students' hurried breathing could be heard clearly. Kitty Li was infected by these words as her cat-like eyes widened, as she stared at Yiqing Luo in adoration. Yiqing Luo seemed to have done it intentionally as she gave them time to think. Approximately half a quarter of an hour later, Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she said calmly, "Of course, it's useless to say all these too early. The key is whether class monitor Xia can accept the conditions that I raised. Train well, I'll go have a chat with class monitor." The students lowered their heads, not saying a word. It was until the moment when Yiqing Luo turned around, deafening sounds erupted from her back. "We have confidence. We want to welcome the sky full of red clouds." 10 over young men and young ladies' voices, were orderly and loud. In everyone's eyes they were already disdainful waste. No matter how miserable could it be? No matter how miserable could it be? So what if they failed? They were aiming for first place to take part in the inter-class competition, they just wanted to win. Yiqing Luo didn't turn back as she could feel the passion from those young men and young ladies behind her. She strode towards the small path as the smile on her lips grew wider and wider. On the way to the class committee room she met Tong Ziqing, who was sitting by the side in a daze. Yiqing Luo spoke softly as she persuaded her to return back to training, and repeated the matter of her preparing devil class to take part in the inter-class competition. Although Tong Ziqing's expression was still ugly, she still obediently returned to the training ground. When Yiqing Luo reached the class committee room, she indeed saw Long Yunzhan sitting in front of the square table, bending over the table to write something. Hearing the noise, he didn't even raise his head. Sit. You know the purpose of my visit? Yiqing Luo sat opposite him. Long Yunzhan put away his brush and put it aside. You decide, I have no objections. Ever since the conversation with Yiqing Luo yesterday, Long Yunzhan was no longer disturbed by the entanglement in his heart, as he resumed his usual calm and serene self. Yiqing Luo shrugged her shoulders. Since that's the case, then I won't be unreasonable and evasive. Tomorrow is a holiday, and for the 3 days of holiday, I've decided to set up a mercenary group and let everyone take on missions. This method reminded her of the Silver Plate mercenary group she met in the magical beast forest. If these students were to form a mercenary group and take on missions from the mercenary union, this kind of training in the wild would be much more useful than training in the training grounds. Any kind of training was more effective than actual combat training. Long Yunzhan was startled, his brows slightly furrowed. Mercenary group? Yiqing Luo nodded. Long Yunzhan had never thought of bringing these students out of the academy for training. Perhaps it was because he had no memory of this world, and the only sense of security he had was Heavenly Academy. Perhaps he was worried that Devil class's students' ability would be exposed too early. Chapter 420. Long Yunzhan pondered for a moment and slowly nodded. If it's you, there shouldn't be a problem. The underlying meaning was that he had agreed to Yiqing Luo's suggestion. However, you will still be the leader. The vice leader and the other positions will be handed over to Xiao Yi and the others. Towards her, the backbone of the students was more inclined towards Long Yunzhan. After all, Long Yunzhan was the one who had truly saved their lives. Long Yunzhan had no objections. After discussing with Long Yunzhan, Yiqing Luo headed over to the ectoplasm treasure land. According to what the ghost doctor said, she just had to take another pill tonight and her body would be completely recovered. There were only 3 days of holidays, so the devil class had to make the best use of their time and not waste any cultivation time. She had to make a full recovery before tomorrow. After entering the ectoplasm treasured land, Yiqing Luo extracted her consciousness into the azure dew bracelet. Old man Song checked Yiqing Luo's pulse and couldn't help but nod his head as he sighed silently. Ghost doctor. She's indeed ghost doctor. Hearing this tone, Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes. Old man Song, you know senior ghost doctor? Old man Song's hand on Yiqing Luo's wrist paused for a moment before he withdrew his hand. I don't know. You don't know him? Did he really think that she had just met him? Previously, when he'd first met the ghost doctor in the medicine refining room, Old man Song had clearly acted as if he didn't recognize her. But ever since he heard the ghost doctor's name, his entire person seemed to have changed. In addition to this sentence, it would be strange if they didn't know him. Old man Song saw Yiqing Luo staring at him with a pair of suspicious eyes. He immediately turned his head away in annoyance and lightly landed on the stone bed that was constructed from spiritual qi and laid down. Little girl, take good care of your body and cultivate. Don't ask too many questions. Since old man Song wasn't willing to answer, Yiqing Luo naturally wouldn't force him to ask. She sat cross-legged, closed her eyes, and began to mobilize the profound energy in her profound jade heart. On one hand she cultivated and on the other hand she used spiritual energy to nourish her internal injuries. What she didn't know was that the moment she closed her eyes, old man Song, who originally had his back facing her, turned around. Spiritual qi rose in spirals, and the face under the white beard was dyed with a faint trace of melancholy. Ghost doctor. Who would have thought that the old man from the herbal sect was actually the ghost doctor? Could it be that it was really the will of the heavens? The next day, after Yiqing Luo opened her eyes, she stretched her limbs and felt relaxed. There seemed to be a flow of air flowing through her body. She felt light as a feather and didn't feel uncomfortable at all. She tried to circulate the profound qi in her body, but there was no obstruction. Her internal injuries, as well as the scars on her arm which were caused by Yi Qingqian's whip, had completely recovered. After coming out from the spiritual qi treasure land, the students of the devil class had already packed their belongings and were saying their goodbyes to one another, preparing to go home. The academy was on a holiday, so the last time to seal the academy gates was at noon. Because of this, the students had to pack their things early in the morning and strive to leave the academy before noon. Otherwise, they would be forcefully driven out of the academy by the guards. If one was unlucky and stayed longer than noon, it would be recorded as a minor demerit. By the time Yiqing Luo came out, most of the students had already said their goodbyes. On seeing Yiqing Luo walking over, Qiao Jin caressed his throat as he gave a light cough. The originally bustling training ground suddenly became incomparably quiet. All the students reflexively stood in line, their backs straight as they looked at Qiao Jin. This was a habit which they had developed over the years. Yiqing Luo slowly walked to Qiao Jin's side, as her charming eyes swept past each and every one of those childish faces. Chapter 421. Devil class students don't have any holidays. Yiqing Luo's lips curled slightly as she placed her hands behind her back. Today is your free time, but tomorrow before 5 in the morning, you must report to the Mercenary Association's entrance. Mercenary Association? The students' eyes widened as they more or less guessed Yiqing Luo's plan. Your abilities aren't bad, but you don't have any bit of actual combat experience. Yiqing Luo ignored the shock in their eyes. Setting up a mercenary group and accepting missions for you to complete is the best way to increase your actual combat experience. Qiao Jin continued. As for the accommodation for these 3 days, I've already arranged it. After you leave the academy, you can move to the mansion in the west of the city. The students immediately cried out. Some were cheering while some were wailing. In the process of completing the mission, there is a possibility that you will meet other mercenary groups and compete with you for the mission items. Yiqing Luo's clear and melodious voice rose slightly. Her voice was gentle, but her aura suppressed the voices of the students. The outside world is not as clean as the academy. By then, if there are mercenary groups snatching items, it will be up to you to decide how you want to do it. The students tensed up. In this way, setting up a mercenary group was not only to complete missions but also to fight with other mercenary groups. Thinking about it, it made them a little excited. Our aim is not to create trouble, but we are absolutely not afraid of trouble. If you are the one who creates trouble, I will not stop Vice Class Monitor from punishing you. But if anyone dares to offend us, I will be the first to go up. The students clenched their fists as they replied valiantly, yes. It was a holiday and the academy was obviously livelier than usual. The students who came and went had excited smiles on their faces. The academy's entrance was filled with people. Those elders from the families were all here to welcome their families' hope and glory. Devil classes students were disguised as ordinary students as they left the academy one by one. Yiqing Luo guessed that during this holiday the Yi family would not be peaceful. She rejected the few who wanted to leave the academy with her and entrusted Kitty Li to Ni Ruo Pan. She had to admit that Yiqing Luo's intuition was very accurate. Before she reached the courtyard's entrance, she saw Yiqing Qian, who was being crowded by the crowd, smiling shyly, but her eyes were filled with unconcealable delight. A few female students gathered around her, talking about something. Yiqing Qian smiled coquettishly, covering half of her face shyly from time to time. Seeing Yiqing Luo, Yiqing Qian immediately welcomed her with a smile. "Seventh sister, let's go back together." Classmate Qing Qian, why did you drag her home with you? Although they are both daughters of the Three Springs sect, one is from the High Profound class, the other is from the Devil class. A female student beside her rolled her eyes in disgust. Exactly. If people were to see us, they would think that we are as useless as the Devil class. I don't even want to admit that such a person is a student of our academy. It's so embarrassing. Every single word around her were praising Yi Qingqian and belittling Yi Qingluo. Yi Qingqian's pair of beautiful eyes that were pretending to be gentle were filled with a complacent smile. But Yi Qingqian still rebuked the few people who were talking. Stop talking, seventh sister is after all my sister. Chapter 422. She had been in the hospital for almost a month and hadn't seen him for a long time. If she had the time to watch Yi Qingqian act, she might as well visit Xiaoyu and care about his health. Yo, student, yes, temper isn't small. Since when did we act? Don't tell me we said something wrong? Isn't the devil class a waste class? Did you think that you're not waste just because you were in the limelight during the freshman training? Aren't you still being punished by the instructors to the extent that you can't even take part in the training? Devil class is a waste class and you still want to take part in the inter-class competition 8 months later. I wonder what face you have to say such a thing. Heavenly Academy will be destroyed in the hands of you waste sooner or later. One after another, ridiculing voices made the surrounding students cast their gazes over. The position they were standing at was coincidentally not far from the entrance of the courtyard. Those parents who came to fetch their sons and daughters also looked over when they heard these students' words. When their gazes fell onto Yi Qingluo, they were all stunned by this lady's looks. But hearing that she was a student of devil class, no matter how beautiful her looks were, it was obliterated by the 3 words devil class. Towards other people's gazes, Yi Qingluo had never put it to heart. Yi Qingluo's gaze sunk slightly as her lips curled into a sneer. She pinched her own hand and twisted her neck. Looks like you all missed the taste of my fist. Hearing the cracking sound of Yi Qingluo's bones, these female students' faces turned pale as they subconsciously hid behind Yi Qingqian. This action made Yi Qingluo scoffed coldly. Even a waste is so afraid, you intermediate profound class students are merely so. Saying that, she walked past these few people and walked out of the courtyard. Yi Qingqian's gentle brows creased slightly as she scolded these useless female students in her heart. Seeing that Yi Qingluo had already walked out of the courtyard, Yi Qingqian immediately chased after her. Before she could call out to Yi Qingluo, she heard a clear voice coming from the front. Qingqian. Yi Qingqian's heart trembled as her face revealed a joyful expression as she raised her beautiful eyes and looked towards the direction of the voice. She saw Leng Fenghua standing in front of a luxurious carriage. And in front of the carriage there was a row of imperial guards. It looked extremely eye-catching. He had gained a lot of face. Yi Qingqian's face was flushed with shyness as her pair of beautiful eyes were about to burst into tears. The female student beside her covered her chest with both hands and teased, "Classmate Qingqian, I told you His Royal Highness would come. Look what an extravagant show. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince is so handsome and powerful. He treats Qingqian so well that I can't find any fault with him." Student Qingqian, since His Highness the Crown Prince personally came to the academy to pick you up, does that mean your wedding date is near? Yi Qingqian's delicate face turned even redder as she stomped her feet. What nonsense are you talking about? Like a little girl, she shyly broke away from the hands of the female students and jogged towards Leng Fenghua. The female students behind her knew that she was in a good mood, so they became bolder and teased her. What nonsense are you talking about? Look at how excited you are to see your sweetheart. Your Highness. Yi Qingqian trotted forward, a pair of beautiful eyes rippling like spring water. She was panting when her feet seemed to have bumped into something as she suddenly staggered and cried out in surprise. Leng Fenghua stretched out his hand and coincidentally caught Yi Qingqian in his arms. Slow down, you're in such a hurry. If others saw you, they would only think that you're the eldest miss of the Yi family who doesn't know etiquette. Although he said so, but the pampering in his tone was obvious. Chapter 423. Leng Fenghua's identity was outstanding, and he had put on such a big show. At the crowded entrance of the academy, the gazes of countless people were basically gathered on Leng Fenghua. There were also many family elders who wanted to greet Leng Fenghua after seeing him, but they were stopped by the imperial guards. At this moment, on seeing Yi Qingjian and Leng Fenghua's lovey-dovey look, everyone could see it clearly. It was only the academy's holiday, yet Leng Fenghua had set up such a grand display, and even personally welcomed them. Everyone was guessing that the Three Springs sect and the royal family, were they preparing for marriage? Everyone then recalled what the female student had said earlier, and they all nodded in agreement. This was indeed the déjà vu of the wedding day approaching. Xianxia could feel the envious gazes from the surrounding, feeling that she was like the moon surrounded by stars. Everyone was surrounding her, praising her, envying her. She enjoyed this feeling too much. The depths of Xianxia's eyes were filled with a complacent expression. However, the expression on her face was still as gentle as a spring breeze. With a voice as gentle as water, she said softly, "Your Highness is busy with official business. In fact, there is no need for you to personally." Before he could finish his words, her soft and delicate body that was stuck close to Leng Fenghua was pushed away by Leng Fenghua. The man's handsome face lowered his eyes to look at her. Xianxia looked away shyly. Her voice was soft and charming. "Your Highness, you're so annoying. Where is Qing Luo?" These two voices sounded at the same time. Before Xianxia's tempting ending tone could hook up, she heard Leng Fenghua's question. The smile on his face froze. Seeing Xianxia not replying for a long time, Leng Fenghua narrowed his eyes and repeated once again, "Where's Qing Luo?" "Your Highness, why are you looking for seventh sister?" Xianxia quickly regained her senses and suppressed the displeasure in her heart, maintaining the gentle smile on her face. Leng Fenghua curled his thin lips, but his eyes were fixed on a certain spot in the crowd. Suddenly he raised his voice. "She is this prince's future crown princess. This prince naturally came to take her home." This time round the smile on Xianxia's face couldn't be maintained. Her face turned extremely pale in an instant. Her soft body trembled uncontrollably. Leng Fenghua's words were like a ruthless slap on her face. The beating was loud and clear. Leng Fenghua's voice was extremely loud. Like a clap of thunder, it exploded in everyone's ears. The information contained in these words was really huge. Could it be that Leng Fenghua's extravagance today was not to pick up Xianxia, but to pick up the Yi family's seventh young miss who had been a waste for more than 10 years? Only then did everyone remember that Leng Fenghua and the Yi clan's trash seventh young miss were engaged by the monarch himself. Then, Xianxia actually ran over like a butterfly the minute she saw Leng Fenghua, and even hooked onto his arm. What was she trying to do? Earlier Xianxia's bunch of lackeys said that the crown prince was a perfect man and the wedding date was nearing. What were they up to? Everyone's gazes towards Xianxia had changed from the original envy to disdain and ridicule. The number one beauty of Three Springs City was quite pretty, and her cultivation talent was strong too. However, his character was so low. Chapter 424. Eldest Miss Yi has indeed hooked up with the crown prince. The last time eldest Miss Yi went to the public square to find trouble with student Qing Luo, student Qing Luo said that there was something going on between them. At that time I didn't think so, but now I've seen it with my own eyes. This atmosphere, this stance, they must have hooked up for more than 3 years. Shu, lower your voice. If the crown prince hears this, we'll be the unlucky ones. They can even do such a thing. Are they afraid that we'll say anything? Look at them, they're already stuck together. The surrounding students muttered softly as they rushed towards Leng Fenghua's direction, pointing and gossiping. After Leng Fenghua raised his voice and said that sentence, he regretted it. But the words had already been said and there were so many people who heard it, it was impossible to take it back. At this moment the surrounding people's gazes were like needles, staring at him as they described the matter between him and Xianxia in an extremely filthy manner. Although Leng Fenghua and Xianxia had indeed hooked up for many years. However, this was their private matter. Now that it was brought out in front of so many people, he, the crown prince of a country, was completely disgraced. Especially now that the royal family was in turmoil, this stain of his could possibly affect his position as the crown prince. Thinking of this, Leng Fenghua couldn't wait to give himself a big slap. He had always been cautious in his words and actions, and was very clear that any words and actions could possibly be used against him by the enemy. But he had not expected today in front of so many people he had committed such a lowly mistake. The Academy's entrance was not only filled with people from the West continent, nor were they only from influential families. From all over the world there were people with all kinds of statuses in Nirvana realm. Today's topic would definitely spread at an extremely fast speed in the entire Nirvana realm. Lung Fenghua's heart was crying out in frustration, as his gloomy face suddenly pushed Yi Qingqian away. His vision went past Yi Qingqian looking towards somewhere in the crowd. However, he discovered that the delicate figure that he had been longing for had disappeared without a trace. He intentionally said that he was here to fetch Yi Qingluo, intentionally said it to Yi Qingluo. They weren't too far apart, so no matter how noisy the surroundings were, Yi Qingluo would definitely have heard what he said. But not only did Yi Qingluo not take the initiative to look for him, she was nowhere to be seen. The minute he thought that because of her, the surrounding people had suspected the relationship between him and Yi Qingqian, Lung Fenghua's heart was filled with rage. After Yi Qingluo walked out of the courtyard, she saw Yi Fengyu, who had been standing obediently at the entrance, waiting for her. After nearly 20 days, Yi Fengyu had grown a lot taller and his body had also become a lot sturdier. Yi Qingluo's eyes curved. "Little Yu." She quickly walked forward and grabbed Yi Fengyu's wrist. His wrist was no longer as thin and weak as before. It already had the feel of solid muscle. It had only been 20 days, yet Yi Fengyu had changed so much. Seemed like old man Gui Yu did not forget to train Yi Fengyu when he was the teacher of the devil class. "Sister." When Yi Fengyu saw Yi Qingluo, a smile appeared on his delicate face. He was just about to stretch out his hand to take his sister's luggage, but discovered that Yi Qingluo's hands were empty. Yi Qingluo rubbed his head. "The dormitory has been destroyed, the things inside can't be kept, and there's nothing valuable inside." Chapter 425. "You put your mind on training, don't keep paying attention to my sister." Yi Qingluo's hand, which was rubbing his head, suddenly increased in strength as she gave him a hard slap. Yi Fengyu hugged his head in pain. "I'm just worried about you." "Is your sister's hand someone to worry about?" The siblings chatted on, totally not paying attention to the situation over at Lung Fenghua's side. So naturally they didn't hear the words that he deliberately raised his volume to tell her. Just as she was preparing to return to Three Springs sect, a few students suddenly appeared in front. "Student Yi, Crown Prince is here to pick you up personally. What are you still doing here?" "His Highness the Crown Prince treats you so well. Earlier your eldest sister thought that Crown Prince was here specially to pick her up, so she pretended to be shy. Who knew? Crown Prince said he was here to pick you up." "Student Yi, hurry over, don't let Crown Prince wait for too long." "I can't wait to see Yi Qingqian's sullen face. She really thinks of herself as a goddess, looking down on other students but still being outdone by her own sister. Still trying to snatch her own sister's fiancé. Only her face is big enough to do such a thing." These female students had obviously been bullied by Yi Qingqian daily. This was a rare chance for Yi Qingqian to lose her face in public, so they naturally wouldn't let it go. Hence, one by one they started to search for Yi Qingluo. Once they found her, they crowded around her and pushed her into the crowd. Yi Qingluo was still in a daze when she heard a joyful voice. "Qingluo." She saw Lung Fenghua walking over with an earnest face. His face was filled with his usual refined and warm smile. He walked to Yi Qingluo's side and stretched out his hand to grab her wrist. His eyes were filled with worry. "I heard that you were attacked. Are you injured?" "After I heard this news, I have been so worried that I couldn't eat or sleep." His voice was gentle and filled with affection, like a young lad who had his first awakening of love, with a trace of bashfulness and a trace of cautiousness. "I know today is the school's holiday, so I immediately came to pick you up. Now that I see that you are fine, I can rest assured." If it wasn't for the fact that she knew Lung Fenghua's true colors, Yi Qingluo would have been deceived by his superb acting skills. Whereas for Yi Qingjian, who was standing by the side, her entire face was sunken as she stood stiffly by the side with an awkward and embarrassed expression. She pretended to be sentimental as she went up to Lung Fenghua, intentionally flaunted her love. But when Lung Fenghua questioned Yi Qingluo and even said that he was here to fetch Yi Qingluo, she was given a tight slap on her face. But now Lung Fenghua had ignored her and treated Yi Qingluo with eagerness and gentleness. That was like sprinkling a handful of salt on her wound. Lung Fenghua's eyes were obviously drooling over Yi Qingluo. Furthermore, after Yi Qingluo had stirred things up, Lung Fenghua had never mentioned the topic of marrying her again. Yi Qingqian was trembling with rage. She had given everything to Leng Fenghua. She had given her entire life to Leng Fenghua, but in the end this was the result? She would never accept this. In his heart, an inexplicable flame of jealousy burned incessantly. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly as she faintly glanced past Yiqing Jian, who was shooting a hateful gaze at her, as her lips curled into an arc of ridicule. "I've troubled your highness." You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.